something that had a very profound influence on my life was my dad's death in 1987. I was only 19 years old, first year student at University of Victoria, and I had 3 siblings that were still at school. One of them was the youngest was 6 years younger than what I was. She was 13. Quite an impressionable age, this teenage phase. So our father's death really had a profound influence on the rest of our lives. Hi all, I'm Leon Forsman. I'm a mediator and a counsellor in private practice. And at the bottom, in the description part of this video, you will find my contact details if you need to perhaps speak to me. You may have guessed by now that this second video in our What About series is about dads, fathers or fatherhood. Seen especially in the backdrop thereof that Father's Day is just around the corner. It would be Sunday, Father's Day. I also would like to just credit Professor Wenzel Kutzer for the work he has done in this regard, and I rely quite a bit on his experience and writings. But there are 2 terms we first need to clarify. The first one is father wounds. This includes a sense of absence. It can be a real absence, a dad that's not there anymore, he's dead, he's left, you've lost contact with him. Or it could be a sense of absence in terms of he's in the home with everybody else but never available. He's only there to provide in the material needs of the household. It may also include deep psychic injuries and sometimes also physical wounds. We see this quite often, the physical wounds of a teenager that's going through a deep emotional crisis in his life, maybe even related to his father and his experience of his father, where they cut themselves. The second term is father hunger, that results of receiving too little quality fathering in your life. You have this empty space within you that you need to fill, a void that has to be filled with something. And in many cases, it is filled with all the wrong stuff when a father is not involved in his child's life. Growing up without a father leaves its nasty marks upon our psyche and our being as a person. Emotionally, physically, spiritually, as well as psychologically, the father wounds affect our lives. Children that come from broken households or come from households where their fathers are not involved in their lives for whatever reason, maybe death, have a greater risk to get involved in all sorts of unhealthy and unproductive stuff in their lives, like drugs and alcohol, substance abuse, have a much greater possibility of getting involved with something like that. Teenage pregnancies and sexual promiscuity is of these factors that result from a fatherless or father absentee in a child's life. Low scholastic work is given in, and criminal activity, especially violence and gangsterism, is part and parcel of this problem. In South Africa, we have many townships that are run by gangs. It is, for many youngsters, the only role models they have, the only place of belonging and where they have a sense of belonging. But the end of it all is self-destruction. These kind of teenagers are also more prone to a low self-esteem. And they will do anything just to be accepted in a group, like a gang. And that's part of the problem. In South Africa, we have a fatherless generation for many reasons that we can name. But one of the most important ones is migrant work during the 60s, 70s and 80s of the last century. Fathers left their homesteads to go and find work on the mines, far away from their wives and their children. And the children grew up without fathers. And in many cases, the father connected and began a new family where he was working. It's also a generation in which fathers are emotionally unavailable. They're not there to listen to the cries of their children. They're not there in the sense of emotionally there to help them through the difficult times of their lives, and working things out that would help them grow up. I remembered my own dad working away from home. He would, on a Sunday evening, board a plane, and we would only see him again the next Friday. And I know how that had an influence on all of us. I was the eldest, so I had to be the man of the house. Low self-esteem, which is one of the byproducts of a fatherless generation, leads to destructive behavior within any society, which in turn leads to poverty, violence and crime and joblessness. We see that there's a rise in those communities of prostitution and also physical ailments. Children that grow up in a destructive household without a father are much more prone to getting ill, getting some kind of ailment. Drugs and substance abuse we've mentioned, and gangs and teen pregnancies is one of the big factors that happens where a fatherless generation grows up. Children that grow up in fatherless homesteads are also more prone to the fact that their own marriages won't succeed. And it's as if this perpetual cycle repeats and repeats and repeats itself, but with the negative consequence that it becomes even deeper and deeper and deeper, the despair of that cycle people find themselves in. Fathers have a very important role to play within the structure of their family. And it's not just a providing, making sure that there's enough food and the house is paid and the water and electricity is done. It is much more than that. Dads foster a feeling of security, and they open spaces in which children can flourish and be themselves without any fear that they will be judged or be laughed at or belittled. It forms a child's identity. When you grow up in a family that is loving and caring, and where a father is available emotionally and otherwise, it helps the child to find his own identity. They need to hear, our children need to hear from their fathers as well, not only from their mothers, that they are loved, that they are special, that they are unique. There's no one else like them. No one can replace them. And that they are of great, great value. When these factors are part of a father's job description and he lives by this code, it leads to a stable identity and it reinforces that positive, stable identity. Let me, though, be very clear here, dear friends. There is no such thing as a perfect dad. It's not there. It's not real. Every dad has also some, or was someone's son somewhere, sometime. Every dad is or was someone's son. And the influence that dad had on your dad then plays just as great a role as your own role you play. We cannot escape the results of our upbringing. We are products of our family of origin. And this influences our relationship with each other, with our parents, with other people in our lives. Now you may ask, how does a good and wholesome father-child relationship look like? What is a positive one? Well, it's a relationship in which there is closeness between the father and the children. It hasn't to do with the physical closeness, but that there is some kind of connection with each other. It has to do with warmth. Many dads can be present, but they aloof and they quiet and they seem to be angry at the world all the time, and they don't have any time to spend with their children. There's no warmth. Shouting, screaming, finding fault. Attachment is an important factor. It has to be demonstrated. It has to be physical. Your child needs you to give him or her a hug sometimes. There was an experiment done in an orphanage. I think it was in Hungary. And at that orphanage, half of the children received, babies received loving, tender care. They were picked up and they were rubbed down with ointments, and they were touched by the workers. The other half were never touched. They were more ill, those others, that second group. They were more prone to cry all through the night, looking for some form of acceptance and attachment. Being happy and content with your life. Being passionate. And being loving and proud of your children are all the things they need in a father-child relationship, so that that relationship can grow and flourish and your children can become productive citizens and good fathers and mothers for their own children. There is, however, a negative side. Emotional chaos follows where there is a bad father-child relationship. There is a loss of reality, a sense of daydreaming, escapism, getting away from what I'm feeling now. Some of these things we've already mentioned, but sexual perversity, destructiveness, memory loss, a lot of shame. They usually leave school earlier and are more prone to fear, loss of security and angst and depression. More prone to crime and substance abuse and peer pressure. And bullying, either being bullied or becoming a bully, as a way of dealing with your own pain. I would like to close our discussion this morning with this thought. For every one time you scold your child, you say something negative to your child, it takes 7 positive, affirmative remarks to cancel out that single one negative thing you have said. My dear friends, it's not easy to be a father or parent. It's not that it always comes naturally. We don't always have the resources we would like. We don't always have the examples, knowing where we come from. We don't always know if the things we are doing now, the choices we are making now, makes a difference. And is that difference positive or negative? Don't beat yourself up about that. There's always a possibility that you can change. You can look at yourself in the mirror and say, well, I haven't been a good dad. If this is what it takes, I must work at it to get this relationship fixed. It's never too late. Please, go and give your child a hug. Remind them that you really do love them. Thank you. Have a good day. Goodbye.